Going live. I think it's live. Woohoo! All right. Welcome to Vlog Thursday, episode 155. I am Tom from Lawrence Systems. I am starting to say that at the beginning of all my videos now because people get confused. So the one, Tom from Lawrence Systems. Two, if you want to learn more about our company, go to lawrencesystems.com. This is a weird comment that some people post and then delete, is what's your website? Which it's not only linked to the YouTube and in the description of every video we do. I find it kind of odd. Like, you can Google us and our website comes up and our YouTube comes up. Like, it's not hard to find. And a lot of people like to ask me things that literally I'm the top search result with Google for, which is kind of strange. But so I said, hey, what the hell? I have it at the end of the video, but I don't think people watch it always to the end. So I said, I'm going to start adding it to the beginning of the video now. Now, what do we have here? Testing 10G connections. Do we do things in order, or do we talk about cable modems first? Because I know a lot of people want to come here later and talk about 10G, or should we talk about cable modems? Which I don't have a whole lot to say about them. But this question seems to come up a bit with cable modems. And I don't know if it needs a dedicated video or not. But here's the thing with cable modems. People always, I guess, because Comcast, for example, they charge between, it seems to vary and probably varies with where you live. With the cable modems, they do charge you a rental fee. And to solve the problem of the rental fee, you buy your own cable modem. Now, that seems like a good idea, because if it's, they were charging my daughter at her apartment $14 a month for her cable rental. So we got her a cable modem so she can save $14 a month. But the issue comes down to, I mean, it's fine, I did it for her, but when you talk about businesses, it's a little different. With Comcast, Comcast doesn't allow multiple IP addresses if you have your own cable modem. And for a lot of our businesses, that's one issue. They seem to have some trouble with static IP addresses with the cable modem. They also like to blame the cable modem to be the problem when it's not theirs. So frequently for our businesses, we prefer not to swap it out. And like I said, that question, I think people ask me that a lot more frequently than, I don't know, I'm always surprised at the number of people. And I'm like, for businesses, I just say rent them. Especially if you ever swap over and start doing multiple IPs, it becomes like a necessity. You can't use third party. And it's only a few dollars a month. For home users, yeah, if you want to save a few dollars and you're willing to deal with the potential inconvenience of them blaming your piece of equipment, then go ahead and save it. And it's not, you can, over time, it does save you a lot of money, especially if they're hitting you up for $14 a month. You can buy, granted, it's not the full gigabit one, but if you're not using gigabit, you can pick up like the slower DOCSIS 3 cable modems. They're like $65 now, so it doesn't take long for the ROI to kick in. So I don't have a whole lot to say about them. I didn't know if people had a lot of questions about them. It's one of those things that seems to get asked a lot, but I think it's by people that just don't take the time to do a quick search about replacing a cable modem. And a lot of the cable companies have different ones that they have certified that do claim to work with their equipment. So I don't know, shouldn't be too big of a deal to figure it out if you want it, but I don't know if it needs its own video. Maybe I'll do a separate video on that topic. Netgate featured a Tom in a LinkedIn post this week. Hey, yeah. Yes, vendors do have that. SolarWinds sends out some stuff there too. Grayson, thank you for the $5 donation. Checking in from Tallahassee. Can't wait for the 10 gig demo. I'm working on a few things about 10 gig in here. Hey, look, it's Chris from Crosstalk is in here too. I'm catching up on scrolling up. Awesome. Hey, Chris. Chris has a much better view than I do because I just look outside and see snow. Chris sees all this lush green area. I should move. It makes me want to be where Chris is. Because Michigan's nice in the summer, but in the winter it's just kind of gray, ugly, and snowy. That's the status we're in at the moment here in January of Michigan. Security Onion's awesome. That's what I think about it. It's difficult to learn because there's a lot to it, but it's a great product. Hello from Ireland. We use 3.1 here. Comcast is DOCSIS 3.1. I can't speak for every cable provider. It varies. Yeah, so anyways, everyone has asked a billion times, why don't you review a MikroTik? So I got one because I have a use case for it. And I generally, this is something one-off. I knew enough people would be excited the fact that I purchased one. And they're finally, this one is in stock. I hate the interface. We'll pull it up here in a second. I don't know, maybe it has to grow on you, but the interface looks really, really basic. But I guess for a router, as long as it's functional, but I haven't really taken the time to learn where everything is. We just don't get a lot of MikroTik. Well, we don't do a lot of videos on it, so we don't get people really asking about it, and we don't have clients using it, so I don't see it often in the market. So, greetings from Romania, Ontario. Woohoo! Keystone panel. Yeah, I did a whole video on this rack and the keystoning and everything else of how we did this. This is our studio rack. Now, this white cable right here we just ran today. We're not completely done because we're doing some more work in the back, but I wanted a cat. We just have cat 6A. Someone said why 6A, not just cat 6. Cat 6 would have been perfectly fine. We just had a small piece left on a spool and it's a short run. Cat 6, like I said, would have been fine, but we had it. I didn't want to throw it away. So we used Cat 6A, ran it over here. Then what we do is we ran it to this MikroTik. Now, this MikroTik has in this little hole right here, let's actually get this in on the camera, that's an RJ45 SFP 10 gig adapter. And this is kind of cool because this allows me to use SFP ports 10 gig. I couldn't have got a fiber. Someone's going to say, why didn't you run fiber? I'm like, because I had Cat 6A in stock. But right here, this allows me to have a 10 gig connection to my studio. Now I have a couple more ports left over, 3. And these 3 ports, I can then use 10 gig for this guy right here. So this is the TrueNAS box that I'm working on a review for. So I just wanted more room in the back to do the review of the TrueNAS, and it needs to do the review decent at least. It's got a 40 gig connection, by the way, with the TrueNAS. I at least want to give it a 10 gig connection to work with. It has redundant 40 gig connections on it, so it's going to be kind of a series of videos I want. I also decided, because enough people have asked about them, I have different connectors right here. So I have a series of SFP connectors I'm going to be using to do some demos because people have questions about how SFP works. I have a fiber connection right here. This is all stuff for the demo. All this stuff works. And, you know, just kind of go over all the differences on the different types of cables, including this is a SFP DAC cable that I got laying here too. So you've got DAC 10 gig SFP. You've got fiber that can do 10 gig. With SFP LC connectors, and I have an RJ45. So I'm just going to go through and walk through the tests and testing each one and talk about it. So have you done anything with HA Proxy? 74 in Houston sounds great. I know how to set up HA Proxy, and I have worked with it. I've even used Let's Encrypt certs and done the proxy stuff on it. I haven't done any videos on it because I don't have any way to do them without using public IP addresses. I think I mentioned this in my last video too. Maybe I'll spin one up in the cloud and take the time to build. It's just a lot of time. For me, I have a whole stack here. But to have a public IP address exposed and have to potentially deal with some person who just goes, oh, look, I'm going to go DDoS that IP address that Tom's got in his stack there and be annoying, I don't bother to do it that way at our office. So maybe I'll buy some other IP addresses. Maybe I'll take the time to stand it up in another server somewhere else. And that way I can destroy it when I'm all done. It's a matter of time to do it. That's the tricky part. And pfSense themselves has a video on HA Proxy and how to set it up. So the TrueNAS video is going to take some time. It's a lot to review. So it's a series of first having 10 gig over here, building out the test environment, racking this thing. I'm hoping to get started on it this weekend. I haven't even put all the drives in it. Right now, this is still empty. So the drives are not in this yet. It's on the to-do list, but they're all behind me in a box. I haven't unboxed all of them. I got to get around to doing it all. But hopefully it helps you. William, it works great if you're wondering on an opinion of is it good? Yes, you can tie it with Let's Encrypt. That's another good feature. And there's 2 longer, very detailed videos by the pfSense folks themselves on their YouTube channel for how to set up HA Proxy and Let's Encrypt. Let's see. Yeah. I won't have a 40 gig connection for the TrueNAS. I'm just not going to spend the money for the 40 gig connection on here. And they have, I'm going to talk about the features of the box, and it's not like it really matters. It does 40 gig. They have the numbers to prove it. It does do it. I'm not going to go spend the money to build out a 40 gig setup here just to prove what they've already proven. I'm mostly going to go over the features of TrueNAS, how it works, walk you through some of the functionality of it, what makes it different than FreeNAS, and how all the little details work on it. Coppers with a P. Yes, it is. So many videos, so little time. Yes, Chris knows all about that. Me and Chris have the same thing. Having a job and doing videos and all that's fun. Would I recommend Fios over Xfinity? I don't know. I don't have Fios here. MSP onboarding video. Do you onboard clients who don't? Yep, we'll onboard a client without a firewall in place. Let's see, what else we have here? Coppers with a P. Okay. Ubiquity Dream Machine home solution. I think the Dream Machine makes a great home solution. That's exactly what I put in my daughter's apartment. XCP&G versus LibVirt. XCP&G all day. iSCSI. Yes, TrueNAS supports iSCSI. Screen behind me is UniFi. So UniFi is behind me. Let's look at the MikroTik. Let's log into it because that'll make somebody happy. Is that I've actually logged into a MikroTik. MikroTik? MikroTik? Mikro. I think in Latvia it's pronounced Mikro. So let's ooh and ah over this. No, we don't want to save the password. Ooh, ah. Now something I did notice here for those that care. I was doing a bunch of testing on this by plugging it in and routing it at 10 gigs. Did it connect to 10 gigs? Yes. It gets hot right here. Look at the temperature on this thing. Then this isn't the MikroTik. This is the SFP module itself gets that hot. So the RJ45 adapter definitely, when you're running, we ran steady 10 gig. It doesn't seem to get above 59, but it's surprisingly warm when you're on there. I was like, wow, that's definitely warm. So it's really not doing anything right now. That's the interface that's on there. It is a cool little box. I'll do a separate review of the MikroTik box itself so people can kind of get an idea of how it works and things like that. I know it's been reviewed before, but people want to know what my opinion is on it. And my first opinion is this interface is just not beautiful. It's not great. It's MikroTik. So it's also kind of strange to me and that MikroTik doesn't gray out, so to speak, any functionality, whether this box supports it or not. There's some settings here on, for example, where was it? Radius log tools. There's a few different things I remember looking around in here and going, okay, it does this or does that, and I don't think these features on there. One of them was like talking to the serial ports, and I'm like, well, there's no serial ports on this. I forget where I've seen that. I haven't spent a lot of time in this interface. It does appear, though, and correct me if I'm wrong, because at least there's going to be one MikroTik fanboy in here that can tell me this. Does this MikroTik, it looks like, based on what I read, it completely supports VLANs. Is there anyone who knows to the contrary? It seems to support it. I haven't done any testing with it. I just turned this on today, so hopefully that someone asks. Let me roll through this real quick. I do belong to multiple chambers of commerce. The snort key works for Suricata, yes. They're the same key if you're using the snort downloads. Switch it to SWOS for multiple VLAN trunks. Okay, that's interesting. So SWOS is for multiple VLAN trunks. I'll do a little bit of reading on it to just do the basics on it. Port isolation host rules. I don't know where SWOS is. I'm sure it's somewhere. What else we got here? Would you recommend a FreeNAS over a QNAP or a Synology? Depends on the use case. I like Synology. I like FreeNAS. Synologies are good for the small jobs. FreeNAS is good for the big, large commercial systems that we've done, like the really high-end systems. Well, even like this in the TrueNAS. These are where we use the FreeNAS system for. So, yes, it does support VLANs. Awesome, cool. I figured it did. I mean, pass through, if you need it, use it. SOS for SwitchOS. So how do you switch it to SwitchOS? I've seen that it's supported. Where do you switch it to the different OS? Do you upload a different configuration for this? That's actually something I didn't know about these. I've seen it's got the option for SwitchOS that it says it runs it on their product page, but so you reload it. Okay, and SWAS mode approach. Oh, okay. So do you reload it with a different firmware, I guess is the question. Go to router board settings. Let's go there together, folks. Router board and then settings. All right, well, somewhere in here, I guess there's a way you switch this over. I don't know if it's important that we do that now. I'll do some reading. I don't mind doing a little reading on it, so. Safe mode, design skins, partition, tools. It's not horrific, but it's not. Hey, they pack a lot of features in here, I guess. That's what makes people happy, right? I did notice that when you're on the main page of it, so it's got this there, or is it this main page? I'm trying to remember now. It's got something for traffic graphs, but they don't seem to work. Router, bridge, terminal. Some work, some don't. Design skin, safe mode. I don't know. Tom learns MikroTik live on YouTube. I don't plan to use this as a router. So, I mean, no one really said this. You just go to System, then Router Board. System, Router Board, Settings, Set Boot, OS equals SWAS. Oh, okay. So I have some of you telling me I can switch it. This is the problem. And the documentation so far was not amazingly clear on MikroTik, which is part of the problem with it. And people ask me to do videos, but I mean, that requires me to spend a lot of time trying to create documentation that doesn't exist. That's where the tricky part comes in with these. Is it, do we go into and do I take the time to learn something to train? I don't know. Where's the value that creates? I don't have a lot of people running it. It doesn't have, they're not terrible product, I guess, but there we go. So allow for ports, upgrade, load config. So I see it or I don't. So is it under, I'm under the SWAS. I'm trying to figure out where the boot is though. Identity, license, package, password, reboot resources, router board versus SWAS. I see the option, but I don't see it where you can uncheck it. USB power reset, USB. All right, I've done played with this too long, goofing off here. I'm staring at it here. I'll show you guys the screen. I see here where's router OS, and here's the SwitchOS. Allow from VLAN. It's got options here, but reset, save config, load config, upgrade. Scripts. Here's router board, but it's set settings. Which is also interesting. It's got like serial port options, but no serial port. Health, it's 39C, history, identity. What am I missing, guys? I did update to the latest router OS already. That's the first thing I did do. You even had the mouse under a cursor over system. Just click it. So, yeah, click system. MikroTik seems cheap and reliable because R&D budget for polish and documentation is 0. Yes. System, router board, button setting at the top of page, boot OS. Ah, okay. Go back over here. See? Systems, wait, router board. Settings. And boot delay, baud rate, protection, enable jumper reset. Right there. Cool. Now, next question, if I reboot this, will it lose its IP address? That would be a pain in the butt. So let's ask the Hive mind that. Will it lose its, I see it now, awesome. Will it still be set to DHCP when I restart it? That's the next question I have here. Or does the config for router OS copy over into SwitchOS? So when I switch it, it'll still be DHCP. Use Winbox, you can log in via Mac, same MAC address, so same IP. The serial port's inside the case. That's deeply inconvenient. But that is at least something that Chris reviewed this and Craft Computing reviewed it. Neither one of them opened it up, and I'm disappointed. So I'm definitely opening up. So just push the button. What fun would it be if I knew how to push a button? So the IP won't stay. Okay, that's what I thought. I figured when I switch OSs, it won't. So if I do that now, all my MikroTik talk is over for the day. So fair enough, fair enough. But 10 gig, it does, well, I mean, I could go back in, change the IP address of my laptop, tie back into it, and all that fun stuff. So, I mean, I could do that, I guess. That would be something I'm capable of doing. So should we switch it live? I wish there was a vote button so we could do this. Better to change the video view. 10 gig is always fun. Now, as far as 10 gig goes, it seems to be no problem routing at 10 gig. So the kind of default config on this works. I didn't have any issues with it. So it out of the box, if a home user, this is important to me, if I were to say, and rightfully so, if you want to set up a small 10 gig at home, like you have a FreeNAS or insert whatever 10 gig device you have, and you have this 10 gig device and you have 10 gig on your computer and you want the two to talk to each other, this seems to work perfectly fine for that without much knowledge of MikroTik. That at least worked. Matter of fact, this is also a Intel 10 gig card that I'm working on because the question comes up about 10 gig all the time, as I said. And I even want to do, this is something people have some questions on, is 10 gig with pfSense. This card will support 10 gig with pfSense. Now, the reason, everyone's like, yes, do it live. Okay. So one of the things is when you have 10 gig with pfSense, the question would come up, for example, we have 10 gig connection to pfSense, which you probably don't have at home a 10 gig connection, so why would you need it? Well, one of the reasons might be you want your VLANs to be able to talk to each other at a faster than 1 gig speed. And then you have all the routing handled in pfSense. Well, the question might come up, can pfSense handle routing at that speed then? And that's what I want to kind of demonstrate. I already know the answer is yes, but at least I'll talk through some of those scenarios of how that works. So that might be something that I think might make a fun video. And how fast will a 10 gig loopback crash something, really? Will it make more noise than a 1 gig loop without spanning tree turned on? Also, if you put a DAC cable in a network cable, a DAC cable in a network card, it makes a handy carrying thing. Things you didn't need to know. Never full send. Hello from Russia. Who's SFP plus 10G? Well, that's going to be something I talk about, but let's pull up my Amazon account real quick because I can't remember the name of them, but I know what they are. And I'll pull them up exactly so I don't speculate. This is the one I ordered. So this right here, it is a QSFP Tech for $43. That's the exact one that is currently in this. So let's go ahead. So I'll show you. Take this out, pull this out. So will that focus? Hey, look at that. I bet it's too small to read still. But this is the little RJ45 connector. When I do the video, I'll have my overhead cam zoomed in so you can see these little tiny things. How close will that get? Not bad, but I don't know. That's still really small text. So you get the idea. But this is the one right here. It is the QSFP Tech for Ubiquiti. It seems to not care. I'm using it in Ubiquiti. It works for MikroTik. It doesn't really seem to matter. The only thing that's a little bit concerning about this is the temperature. It did get to a full 59C. It's pretty cool that it works this well, but it's obviously not, it becomes kind of a bad budget idea. So if you want one of your systems to be RJ45 connected, cool. But this is more ideal to swap some SFP cards, which you can find used relatively cheap on eBay, and pop those into the system. Because if you use SFP, it's cheaper, and if you use these DAC cables, that's relatively inexpensive as well. DAC is really cheap. Direct Access Copper, I believe is what it stands for. What do I think of OpenSense and Sensei? I talked to the Sensei people. They're working on developing it for pfSense. That's what I think about it. The Sensei system looks pretty cool. I haven't really tested it, but I did talk to the developers. Do I need a switch for network file sharing with pfSense? Why are you network file sharing with pfSense? I don't understand. 200 gig InfraBand. Yeah, that would be pretty cool. Yeah, they do get hot, but they seem to work perfectly fine. So I was testing only for today. I used my computer on it. I run a series of tests. I mean, it never got above. It hit that 59 degrees, and it just locked in there. And then when you slowed it down some, when I wasn't pushing it, it seems to go down in the 55 range, but it never seemed to fall out or fail. So... Oh, if all else fails, do that. Oh, that's right. We still want me to do this live. Would you recommend a DIY NAS like FreeNAS for a small company? It just kind of depends. Pre-built is nice. It comes down to who wants to support it. When you get pre-built, there's no headaches. You know everything that they pre-built works, comes with a warranty. When you DIY, do you have the time? What's your time worth to build it? Those are the considerations that are in there. So you might save some money, but time is money, so how much do you really save? That's what you have to come down to. Fiber router would be nice. You generally don't have, I mean, this is just common, not just outside of pfSense, but routers in general, they have SFP on them. That's usually what I see is SFP routers are the ones that have for fiber handoffs. So you get the SFP router, and then you get something like this right here. Well, this is a 10 gig one in here. This is a 10 gig LC connector for a fiber connection. So the fiber, if I wanted to hand off fiber to this MikroTik, I'd slide this in right here, and it would end up with a 10 gig connection via the fiber. Oh, let's see. Did you ever provide the specs on a home NAS running FreeNAS? I don't understand the question. I have a home NAS. I did a video on it. I use the FreeNAS. I'll tell you which one. I did a video on it. FreeNAS Mini. It's on their site. My video's on their site too. Let's look. Not this one, but the FreeNAS Mini. I have the Mini E. This is what I run at home, for those of you that are wondering. This is the one I did the video on as well for, I've got 4 10 terabyte drives in it, and it runs my Steam library at home. So, and someone could say, I can shake their hand, I can build it for cheaper, and spec it out. You can. I'm not going to argue with you. If you want to build it yourself, go ahead and build it yourself. You look up DIY NAS, there's a ton of good guides over in the free NAS forums about parts people used and what they built with to custom build their NAS. So there's definitely unlimited amounts of resources on that. Because we don't DIY a ton of them, I don't have a ton of DIY NAS videos. It's just not. Most of the time we're selling more to commercial businesses that buy larger things like this giant box you see behind me. We sell a lot of higher end systems, so we're not DIYing those. That's just kind of the nature of it. I don't mind doing the DIYs, but then again, people usually don't have me build it and then ship it to them, because by the time you pay me to build it and ship it, you are back up to a price you can just buy one off Amazon for. Hopefully that clears that up at least a little bit. Do we pull fiber for the customers? No. Yes, no. We don't do it directly. No one here, we have contractors that pull fiber. We don't directly pull fiber. That would be the best way to answer that. Buying a bunch of, but when it comes to, for pros and cons of pulling fiber for a home lab, I don't think I'd waste my time with fiber in a home lab. The only time we ever even pull fiber for clients is when the distance is just too great to go between two areas. When the distance exceeds what you can run with Cat 5, we pull fiber. I'm sorry, not Cat 5, Cat 6, or specifically Cat 6A. Cat 6A is still cheaper than fiber to run. So if you want to connect two buildings and it's exceeded what Cat 6A can do, then we're going to go fiber. If it's not, if it's the distance is within reason, we're going to just pull Cat 6A because it's easier. And when it comes to the DAC cables, you generally, more or less rule of thumb, the DAC cables are shorter distance and lower power. So the DAC cables you're going to want to use in the rack. So you just get these generally long enough to connect to your 10 gig core switch and the servers within. You don't need to go fiber necessarily until that distance is a little bit further. DAC cables can be a few meters long. I forget what the limit is, and when I do a video on this, I'll have all the limitations on there. They don't go as far, but they offer really, really low latency. And when it comes to using them on a storage server, when you think about the conversion media, so you are converting from a digital signal here to a light signal back into another thing that has to convert a light signal. We know the speed of light's really fast, but it's not the speed of light where you get the latency. You get the latency because you're now converting media. Direct attach copper is kind of like the name implies. It's direct attach. We're going as direct as possible without converting to light signals and back to light signals, so there's less processing going on. So when you want to do 5 meters on DAC, see, I knew someone knew it. So once you get into some of these, the direct attach copper like this, it's going to be the lowest levels of latency. And it's economical. These cables are like, $8. You can find them cheaper on eBay, find some used ones. They're just not super expensive. Even brand new 10 gig DAC cables, I don't think are more than 15 or 20. They're pretty cheap. I'll have all the prices laid out. They're probably the least expensive way you can build out 10 gig connections is with SFP. It's also one of the easiest because copper is a little bit more delicate. I mean, it's not super bad, but you don't want to. Someone's cringing as I bend it right now. So you got to be a little bit more careful with copper. With fiber, because you can break the fibers in there. You can break it with this too, but it's a little bit tougher. Home lab desktop HTTP setting are quite spread out, but is it more spread out than someone had pointed out that the limit, and we can look it up real quick so I'm not just re-quoting someone. DAC cable 10G distance. I know there's a website that had it all listed. Direct attach cable, not copper, yeah. DAC passive copper. Now these are there is also two modes, and this is something else I have to cover. This is a direct passive cable, direct copper attached. Now there is active, which are different, and they go further. So fast shipping, cable links. There's some videos on this. Here we go. Someone's got a page on it so we can quote all this, so it's not me just spouting it out. Costs, reliability, considerations. DAC cables can go up to 100 gigs to another 40 gig port. Can also be used in the same way above. 40 gig connections. 1 gig. But where's the distance in there? Only 5 meters. So are you more than 5 meters away is the question for your home lab. So, and it's the other side of that too. Cat 6A will go 100 meters, 300 feet roughly, at 10 gigs. So that may be a better solution for you, but it's going to cost a little bit more because just like I showed this little RJ45 connector, it's not cheap to do these little connectors like this. They start adding up really quickly. Yeah, the X520, that's what I'm holding here, the Intel X520 card, definitely great. Yeah, and like someone says, active DAC will go further. There's a Wikipedia page, I think, in all this. Is RJ45 really lower latency than DAC? I don't know. That's another Google search, right? DAC cable versus RJ45 latency. Someone I know has measured this. I always thought DAC was faster. TrueNAS, active DAC. Low latency, but they aren't comparing it to RJ45. Oh, we should probably look all together here. So they're not comparing it to RJ45. What about in here? So with DAC connected, lower latency, 0.3 microseconds per versus 10G, 2.6 microseconds do extra ping. Does anyone have the answer? Because I'm not going to search it all day for this. Is there really a lower latency on there? Yeah, DAC to SFP, always DAC is faster. But what about RJ45? Which one's going to be faster? The SFP has a lower latency due to less built-in electronics. I have not tested the Chelsea cards, but I tested one Mellanox, I think. One of the challenges I realized when I just plugged one in just to see if it would detect it. It detects it, but it will work at 10 gig or nothing. It didn't have the option to step down to different speeds in between. So I thought it was no option either. It only worked at 10 gig or nothing. So I thought that was kind of interesting, but I didn't try it. The other challenge is this doesn't support this in pfSense. The traffic shaping isn't supported directly on it. So like some of the Alt-Q traffic shaping doesn't work with this particular Intel board. So that might be an issue. And people might ask, well, why do you need traffic shaping at 10 gig? Well, there's still advantages sometimes, depending on the scenarios, if you need it. Generally speaking, 10 gig, you're not going to need traffic shaping on unless you are also getting a 10 gig pipe coming in. Because pretty much you're always going to have more bandwidth on a 10 gig than your internet connection. And oh, by the way, this card, I think I paid $50 for it on eBay. In the box, allegedly brand new. It looks new, and it's the Intel one, so they're not crazy expensive. But by comparison, the Chelsea and some of the Mellanox cards, I think I've bought those for as little as $25 before, so they are about half the price. So that copper faster than brief. Search for this option. Google for a PDF file. Have I found an SFP 1 gig that pfSense supports well? Intel. They work great with Intel ones. That's when you buy an XG7100, it's got Intel ones on it. So Intel is the way to go. They're just well supported. So Intel cards are the ones I'm going to recommend because they seem to have all the options for the most part. But usually anytime we've sold any of the 10 gig stuff, we just bought them Netgate devices. So whatever Netgate's got integrated on there, which I know are Intel based, have worked fine. So We don't have that many clients with 10. Well, data center is the only place we have clients with that level of connection. We have 0 of them that have 10 gigs at their office right now. Can you use DAC between Chelsea and Intel with no switch? Yeah, it should work perfectly fine. I don't see why it wouldn't work. I don't know which. I know I've tested some combinations. I can't remember which ones, but in theory, they should work perfectly fine. But someone told me, and I don't know this to be absolutely true, someone told me Intel is really picky about which DAC cables they support, but other companies are not. And an example might be these are labeled for Ubiquiti, but they work perfectly fine in here. Because Ubiquiti does, the MikroTik and Ubiquiti itself doesn't seem to care what goes in the SFP port. But some devices, and I know for a long time, my understanding Cisco did this, Cisco expected a Cisco signature on the SFP. I've heard this before. I've never tried it. I've never sat down with all the Cisco equipment and tried everything in it that wasn't Cisco to see what did or didn't work. Generally, anytime we've seen or had to support any of those, it was already built and or was ordered with the SFPs and everything. So part of the kit just had Cisco top to bottom as not to guess on such critical infrastructure stuff. Can you attenuate a DAC if you attenuate a 10G fiber in a data center? Oh, okay. Yeah, Intel and Cisco are much more finicky. I know I listened to a great interview, and I can't remember who. It was the guy that worked for, I believe it was 10G Tech. He interviewed on one of the podcasts, one of the enterprise podcasts. It was kind of a cool interview because he talked about the history of getting companies to actually do it, because Cisco was notoriously super expensive on any of their SFPs, and like someone had pointed out, very picky. They only wanted to work with theirs. Therefore, it was always a big hassle to get those to work. Yeah, you can, and the Chelsea will run in 1 gig. It's not that I said it wouldn't run in 1 gig. It's whether or not pfSense would run it in 1 gig. That's where the challenge comes in. So it's whether or not those controls get exposed. It should, because as long as there's a BSD driver for it. But you have to look at the BSD driver and what are the features that BSD driver has written. Is negotiating speeds one of those options, or does it only allow auto negotiation? That would be the question. I haven't done any extensive testing with it. I know it works in FreeNAS fine, and FreeNAS is based on BSD, so in theory, it should work also on pfSense. So the 10G Tech, it works in a Cisco, works well, others not so much. Okay. We like the 10G Tech ones. That's what all of ours are. We've not had any problems with them all. All the DAC cables we have that actually, the stuff we run in our rack that's for ours, that's all 10 gig, that's connected to the UniFi, or not, yeah, the UniFi switch and everything, that's all 10G cables. I've got a video on that. It works great. I haven't had any problems with those at all. So, Synology, we didn't bother because we looked at how Synology and Ubiquiti don't play nice together. We looked in the forums and seen other people having problems, and we just never bothered with it. We tried. I didn't remember the results exactly. Kyle tried it, and he said, this is stupid, and we gave up. And we just said, it's not made to work with it. The OMVIF support is not there with the Ubiquiti cameras. They don't support the standard open format that's expected with Synology. Therefore, we don't tie them together at all. Do I have a US Leaf coming? I have no idea. I have no heads up for what I do or do not get from the folks over at UniFi. Random things arrive. Thank you for sending them when they do, and it's a mystery. It's a surprise. It's like it's a pleasant surprise when we get a box from UniFi. We do appreciate them, but I don't know what's coming from UniFi. And we also don't talk about things that might be in pre-release. Cool when they send it, but has an 8-port 10G built in. Yeah, that might be kind of neat. Many eTool can be seen. Yeah, you can do that, but you can do it there, or you can actually look into. I did a video about just a couple of videos ago, and I break down the different supported network interfaces. It's the custom, look for it's custom pfSense to be in the title, but I link to the page in BSD where they list out all the different network cards and what BSD currently supports based on what BSD version you're using. So that's an important, yeah, Tom has random Christmases. You're not wrong about that. So that is one of those things you'll run into if you want to see that. Now, what else is in my list here? We talked about cable modems briefly. I don't think, see, you guys kind of confirmed it. The one-off people that keep asking me about cable modems are kind of the one-off. It's not the majority of the people that watch this channel. So is 1 gig sufficient for real-time video editing for 3 people? Maybe, but probably not. Especially if they're editing 4K, the answer is no. If they're editing in 1080, probably it would work. I've actually edited without the 10G, and it's not unreasonable with myself editing, but it's much faster once I went to 10G. My my desktop is connected at 10G to the back of the office for my video editing. So that works really well. That's been my editing setup for a long time, and it runs on a FreeNAS on the back end. It just is very, very smooth. It's just fast. It feels as fast. It probably feels faster than working on my NVMe hard drive. Do you have any video to set up cameras and software to control them? What do you mean? We have lots of videos. We have a UniFi video if you want to use a UniFi controller. We have we have a couple of videos on Synology cameras, camera setups. So hopefully that helps. We do have videos on that. I'm also curious because I have a lot of random people that emailed me last week, just 3 of them in a row. They said, "Do you guys offer consulting services?" I'm like, I almost want to reply, did you read our website where it says hire us at the top? So I don't know. Oh, will we hear how loud the TrueNAS is? Yes. That is going to be a challenge because I bet it's loud. I don't think it's designed to be quiet. This is also a TrueNAS with redundant motherboards in it and everything else. So it's the beautiful one, redundant motherboards, instant failover, et cetera, et cetera. It's the much higher end model. If you look for a TrueNAS review, I reviewed one around late 2017. This is a much faster, much more modern system than that one. So Wi-Fi 6 videos. Why do you guys care so much about Wi-Fi 6? Yeah. Pre and post roll on the hire us. I've had to put it at the beginning because I overall I get a lot. 3 last week, but overall I do get a lot. I do get a lot of people asking about that overall, and I just think that's weird because you go through the trouble of emailing me. Why wouldn't you bother looking at the website? So, Wi-Fi 6, I'm not. Everyone gets excited about it, but the infrastructure really doesn't support it. And your bottleneck is always going to be, for the most part, your limitation is getting out to the internet. So I don't even care as much about it. Like, I don't understand why people are so, I mean, it is a frequent request. Talk about Wi-Fi 6, which I used to laugh because everyone's been bugging me to review like the Amplify Wi-Fi 6. I think it's called Amplify Alien. But anyways, I seen the person who reviewed it, and it doesn't even have that many views. He reviewed it when it came out, and it still does. And it's a good review. I watched it, and I'm like, yeah, there's not a lot of views on this. And I think there's like those few people that just repeat themselves all the time saying they want the video, but I don't think anyone care. The majority of people that watch my channel, I don't think care as much about it. So, will you make a new video for FreeNAS talking about permissions in detail? I have a FreeNAS permissions video, so I don't know. Maybe. I guess I need another one. I'm not sure. It's a complicated topic, and when I've done the Windows permissions, I think I've just said to do an Active Directory controller because that's how we solve the problems of permissions. We let AD handle them, but I have videos on permissions. I don't know. When the new version comes out of beta, I will be doing a video on that because they updated the way the permissions work in it. It's a different interface. Not hugely different, but they opened up more features to do permissions with the Windows style permissions. So I will be doing a new video when 11.3 comes out of beta. I don't know when that is. I didn't look. They have a roadmap. I just don't know it in my head right now. It's weird because he's making these videos for free means you don't charge for service. Oh yes, that I think I tweeted about that person. Boy, someone was really angry that we charge. That person told me they called me all kinds of names for saying that we charge for service. They were really unhappy about that. that's not uncommon. One person, I just laughed because they told me I should take a Dale Carnegie class, and I don't bother replying to people. Once I see they're just going to call me names and everything, I just mute and block from our site. But I'm just like, I don't remember Dale. I did read the Dale Carnegie books a while ago, and I don't remember anything where it says I should offer free consulting services to people. We have that. That is a common request that people ask us: is can't you help me design my network for free? I'm like, no, and they're upset when we throw a price at them, and they're like, well, why wouldn't you just help me for free? It's only a few questions. I'm like, yeah, we booked. I'm going to do a video on this because people have asked me about my workflow. We switched to the You Can Book Me service in June of 2019, and confirmed bookings, we closed over 200 of them that we actually booked through that. So that's about 200 roughly businesses and some small offices and stuff like that, and small maybe home users that work from home that we booked through this. I mean, this is a part of our business model. I don't know how to just sit around answering questions for free. It's just, I try to on my forums as much as I can. I spend a lot of time in there, and I do. If you look at my user, Lawrence Systems user, you'll see that I post a lot in the forums, more than anyone else. And I spend a lot of time helping the community. But at some point, when you want direct one-on-one time with me, that's when the clock starts. That's my policy for that. Veeam acquired. That happens. That's what companies' goals are. Didn't you ever watch that episode of South Park? It's the South Park business plan. I'm going to pull this up because I love it. Park business plan. There you go. This is, whoops, let me move this over. So where did it go? Here we go. This is every startup plan. Let me open it in a new tab so it's in the center where it should be. There we go. You got to start up, cash in, sell out, and bro down. So they're at step 3 over at Veeam. They started it up, they built the product up, and now they sold out. This is how it works. This is why I like open source products and things like that. That's where you don't have to worry about such things like that. So why would I do a video on pfSense and Active Directory? I can think of no reason I want to integrate Active Directory into pfSense. I don't, like I said, I don't argue with the people. I've seen it. 10 gig setup networking with brand and free NAS. I'll be doing a free NAS one too. So I'm going to do one with the TrueNAS and a free NAS video all about 10 gig networking. And that's a nice thing. I have all this sitting here so I can do it all in my studio about how we do it. So I have videos on our setup for 10 gig networking with the UniFi switch. And someone always points out, Tom, that switch is $600. I'm trying to get started in this. I don't have $600 to put towards a switch. I get it. Fair assessment. I do really, I mean, I'm not just a person who does a lot of enterprise work. I love seeing home lab people get started in this. And getting started in it means buying stuff off eBay and learning how it works so you can apply those skills in the enterprise market. And that's one of the reasons I love having a lot of this stuff like this small rack here and telling people how to do it, because it lets you build on those ideas and expand on them so you can get more skills in this marketplace. Wired coffee makers. What do I think of Open Media Vault? There's nothing about it that's compelling over FreeNAS. I don't have a use case for it. There's nothing about it that compels me to make me think it's better. The only thing neat it does have is if I were to run a small micro Raspberry Pi type thing, it does appear to have a compile for certain versions of small ARM computers. Outside of that, I don't have a use case for it. ZZ, thank you for your effort. Keep going. Don't bother with people that want consulting for free. They don't know how the world works. That is correct. Well, they get their first lesson in how the world works, and thank you very much for the donation. So that's definitely there. Ever looked at LAN, LT WAN backups for connections such as Ubiquiti? I haven't looked at the Ubiquiti one, but yeah, that's something. The Cradlepoint, we've got some of those at clients. There's different ones that we've seen. They're a good idea if you need that. We're lucky my local clients don't need it. We're in a weird area. I've commented many times. We actually have multiple fiber providers and multiple cable providers and DSL. So between the 4 options, or DSL in some cases, we have a combination of options. That means our clients that do have redundant connections frequently just get a cheap backup. Matter of fact, Wide Open West is like $35 a month for a backup 100 meg connection for a business. I mean, if you're outside the US, that may sound expensive, but that's actually, $35 a month for a business to have a backup connection for their internet. Pretty cheap. And it's a 100 meg connection. It's not like they're getting some 30 meg DSL connection. It's 100 megs. So that's faster than you're going to get on an LTE connection. And an LTE connection is going to be in the same price range for the monthly recurring, roughly. We want to see an abuse video on TrueNAS. They won't let me abuse it the way I want because this thing is damn expensive. Do I have a need for 40 to 100 gig? I have a want for it, but not a need. I don't want to spend the money on it, as I'm not, especially this is a demo video, and we're not even peaking out the 10 gig we have now at the office. So 40 gig is cool, but why would I spend the money on it just to say I did? I hate wasting things. At some point, like, do we have people using it? Yeah. Are we using it here at office? No, there's nothing we're doing that needs 40 gigs. It's just cool to have, I guess, but I don't want something just cool to have. Well, I do. Maybe one day I'll just piss away money on it. Once you get to the size of like Linus, and I've talked about how much I make on YouTube, and it's really small compared to someone like Linus. You get someone like Linus, he's making a lot of money, and of course people get excited when they see him making insanely off-the-wall, overly done projects, which is kind of fun to watch, I won't lie. There's some entertainment value to it, but it's mostly entertainment value. It's just seeing how much money you can spend and building some giant thing. It's novel, but it's less about what my channel does. So maybe I'll do it if I have some type of silly money that just comes in and I'm like, I don't know what to do with it, so I'm going to go buy something I won't use. I don't know. It doesn't feel like something I'll do. Maybe one day I'll do a TNSR video. It's not in the near future because we're not using it. It's cool. I know what it is, kind of. They would like me to do videos on it, but I don't actually actively use it. So it's in the to-do list sometime maybe in the future. Mr. Boehm, thank you for the $5 donation, and I appreciate the thank you on the PF Sense videos. So awesome there. I'm not sure how to say, is it Ario? A-R-E-I-O. Ario Boehm. Thank you very much. I should do a count. I don't know. I thought I would do an count on how many times I don't have a use case for MikroTik, but I finally have a use case. And if the world around me changes in Open Media Vault, and I did look, we priced out a mini NAS. We actually wanted to build one with Open Media Vault. We looked at Open Media Vault, looked at the NAS, the hardware it supported. It just added up really quick. It just wasn't, it didn't save a substantial amount for all the sacrifices you made for the features. You may as well buy something just a little bit better when it comes to board and use free NAS and get way more features than building the tiny one. It was only novel, and someone else built one. We looked at it, it's like, that's kind of a neat idea, but then we realized it really was kind of a mediocre idea, so we never even bothered doing it. Have you ever, so we have Marco NLD, have you ever used secondhand UPS devices? I see them on eBay without batteries, considering they need new beds. Can it be a good investment to start with one? I would definitely say if you're a home lab, yes, not bad. If I was going to do it for the commercial enterprise, I generally prefer to buy a new system. But for home lab, oh yeah, that's not a problem. I mean, they're not, as long as, and you can find some really good deals on the batteries. We rebuilt our battery pack in our UPS, and it works. So it's not, the batteries aren't too difficult to replace. You can usually look up the model and find the batteries for a really reasonable price. And a matter of fact, with ours, the batteries went bad, and we didn't buy a new battery pack for it. We bought the individual batteries. They were really cheap. The whole project was, if you bought the whole pack, it's like a few $100s for the batteries, and it was like under $100 if you bought the individual batteries. You just had to, no soldering or nothing. You just had to disconnect all the connectors, put them all back in the same way, put everything back down, and away you go. You have a new UPS battery. So no, because I don't do the best price home routing. So after CES, are there any switches at CES? I don't think there's any enterprise companies, and I don't play with home equipment much. Matter of fact, one of the interesting things, they talked about this in the first episode of the podcast I listened to, This Week in Enterprise Tech. So they covered this. They said, one of the trends that they talked about for 2019, and I'm seeing this exactly like they said, and this is something I believe a lot in, we're seeing ubiquity can be on the edge, of course. Like, it is kind of enterprise, it is prosumer. Someone can argue about those fine details of what goes in what category. But we're seeing home builders. I talked to numerous manufacturing of home builders installing Ubiquiti UniFi switches, PoE switches, and high-speed connections in brand new homes. So they're not going for something by Netgear. They're not going by something by the Asus Nighthawk or whatever those are. They're going for nice commercial ones. So I don't know, maybe because I don't go to CES, maybe I will one year. I might go sometime only because I like some of the people there, but my home is boring. There's not a bunch of devices. I go here, I have like an SG1100 at home, a gaming system, and I do have that FreeNAS at home, but there's very little tech at my house. I'm just not that into that stuff. That being said, I don't go gaga or get excited about a lot of CES stuff. It's really not my thing. So maybe there are some switches at CES. If someone wants to post in my forums about the ones they think are cool, but for the most part, I mean, is Ubiquiti even there? Or any other company? Does MikroTik show up? Does any of the companies that are into it, does Cadmium or any of them show up to CES? I don't know. So what else we got here? Yeah, it's Consumer Electronics Show, exactly. And I don't really, like I said, so Hank at HLE Consulting. Tom, keep up the great work for our community. You have inspired me, but back through your devotion to sharing knowledge back into the community. Yes, that is, I've always liked teaching and showing people how to do things. That comes from my hacker background. The reason hackers frequently get caught when things were done, especially when you're younger, is all about show and tell. Guess what I hacked? You can't resist starting with that. And it's not because they want to do something nefarious as much as it's proving you can, and then teaching someone else that they can too is always just a lot of fun. Apply that to my 25 years of working in the industry and networking. I love always teaching and sharing people. And I've, for a very long time now, I've had my business for 16 years, and I've worked in a management role for 20 years now. Well, more. 22 years I've worked in a management role where I've had people that I've supervised. I've always found that teaching them how to do things helped me do my job better. So it's just kind of all how I look at things and how I do things. So. Yeah, the price, well, one of the things I found interesting is and let's pull this up real quick because this is probably, what does that stupid Nighthawk, so what do these cost? I don't know. I mean, I'm not someone who knows the price on these. That's not the price. So Netgear, there we go. Let's go on Amazon. That should be reasonable. $139. So here's the Moomy. I mean, they're not. I guess they're okay. This one looks weird. It looks like people doing this, like making this. That's I don't know. What do you guys think? It looks weird. Armor cybersecurity. I'm gonna go with no on believing there's anything cyber or secure about it. I also, the track record of these companies, yeah, they are terrible when it comes to security and things like that. So it's loaded with advanced technology, QoS and Amazon Alexa controls. It seems like tying your firewall to Amazon Alexa might be a terrible idea. I could be wrong. So I don't know. I don't plan to review these. I just have zero interest in them. We always put in a UniFi, even at our business owners, their homes usually get a UniFi and things like that. So, let's see. Rename the channel PF Sense cheaper. PF Sensey. Yeah. Hey, Alexa, allow port 80 to be opened. That makes sense. I know some of the consumer routers had the what do you call it? They had the option to run DDRT and things like that, but that's kind of, I don't know. I guess it's okay for a home user. Honestly, with the SG1100, and someone just asked this question, what do I run for my small business? I'm going to recommend a 3100 for a small business. This box right here. I mean, I've got a couple reviews. Dude, we sell a lot of this particular box. This is one of my favorite ones Netgate makes. They are just super solid, secure, and just a good performer overall. And they support VLANs and all the features that you'd expect from a commercial router. And if they never need that stuff, cool. But if they ever do need it, they don't have to go, oh, you need to do something more advanced. Yeah, you got to rip out that thing you bought that costs almost as much. And if you're on a super slim budget, you get the same security levels, just not as fast a routing speed, and a tiny, I don't have one on the table here, a tiny little SG1100. You get the full features on there. It's just a great little box to do things. So, what do you put in for firewall for customers using SIP VoIP? PFSense. Do you SSH into your Office servers since you have them on an isolated network? In PFSense, do you allow internal traffic through the SSH port? No. We only external things, the only way we can manage anything is through OpenVPN. We have everything locked down to that. Even my house. If I want, I do have a PFSense at my house, and if I want to get to some device at my house, no ports are open at all. We only have OpenVPN set up at my house, and then I OpenVPN into my house to get to anything behind it. So, oh, you know what? No one's asked me about this in a while. Let me see if I can pull it up. I'll VPN into my house. So people, no one's asked about this, but this project is still going. I never did a video on it yet. So this camera watches my sump pump. This is at my house. So this is why I have a VPN to my house in case it's raining. And I was curious, like, hey, is the sump pump working? Yeah. And you can see the water levels up kind of high. Any minute the pump's going to kick in. It slowly works its way up, you know. And this is a piece of technology that's at my house, is the camera. Someone will probably say, Tom, why don't you just put a water sensor in there? I do, but I like to visually see it because I had a water sensor fail before too. And it failed not when the water rose, it just decided it wanted to go off randomly, which annoyed me greatly because I thought my house was flooding and it wasn't. The water sensor decided it was broke. The sensor decided to kick in. So there's that. So I still have my sump pump camera for, I talked about that a long time ago and someone had asked about it. That's one of the things I have in there, so. If you close all the ports, could you remote desktop, Google Remote Desktop, for example? Yeah, Google Remote Desktop doesn't use ports open. Yeah, sump pump cam, funny. What camera? So it's actually a Raspberry Pi camera, and it's a project called MI. So M-E-Y-E for Raspberry Pi. Oh, here, cool. You can watch the sump pump running. Oh, we missed it. It just flushed and did it. Now the water's all jiggly here. You know, the fascinating things, your insight into the underside of my house and how it works. It's also completely dark under my house. I don't have a basement. This is under like a crawl space. So this camera has a light on it. I should probably do a video on it because a lot of people have asked about it. It's just a Raspberry Pi with a project called MI. Let me pull up the project page. That way we can talk about it. Because people have asked about it. And it's there we go. Right here. So Motion iOS. MIOS is a Linux distribution that uses your single board computer to a video surveillance system. Ooh, they have a Facebook page? That's interesting. Anyways, it's an actively updated project. Maybe I should do a video on it. It's pretty cool. It just creates a motion sensing camera so you can actually set triggers. And I was always going to do more for it, but for the most part, I just look at the video and say, hey, look, my sump pump's running, not running, or overflowing. If any of those conditions are there, I visually see them. But it's a good, pretty neat little project. I'll drop a link in here for you guys. That's the project for those of you who want to click on it. Make a video about VPN to home. It's just OpenVPN. It's follow any of my OpenVPN videos. There's nothing special about what I have at home. Yeah, my sump pump on Shodan. That'd be funny. Yeah, so you can. That's something I've been on my to-do list. One of the reasons I use the Raspberry Pi is because my next step of what I was going to do is put the sensor on the GPIO to tell me, because the same Raspberry Pi can run more things, and I was going to have it do that, and I thought that'd be kind of cool, but I haven't gotten around to that part of the project yet. It's on my to-do list. And it's been there a year, so at some point I will get to it. And that's the only, that's how that works. Colby Taylor, why do you use SolarWinds backup and not SolarWinds backup and not B2? B2 is cheaper. I believe that's what your use case. Thank you for the shared knowledge. So we use Backblaze. Why do you use SolarWinds backup, not document backup and B2? So we're kind of a mix right now. We're moving things over to MSP 360/Cloudberry. We're moving more things over to that right now. That's been the current migration. We're waiting for another update because they're going to be working on the B2 storage. So we've been working with developers, and they're going to have better support for B2. They have support for B2, there's another feature I need. But we also do FreeNAS to B2. We don't have like a single cookie cutter backup, because, well, not every client is single cookie cutter about the way things are done. There's another camera thing I was about to mention, Shinobi. Shinobi looks pretty cool. I just didn't feel it was a complete project. We played with it. I said I didn't feel like doing a video on it. I didn't like it that much. So, so emojis in my SSH config. That's a fun one. So let's do a live demo of that. That's funny. This just amuses me greatly. Emojis in the SSH. So let me clone this. I gotta hide a couple IP addresses here before we do this. So anyways, actually I don't even need to for this. So Debian. What's the network this is attached to? This one can go away. Sorry, I'm deleting things for you guys. Remove. Yes. Let me find the right. I had the wrong Debian. 1 second. This Debian. All right. So we're firing up this server here. And actually, let me edit my SSH config. I'm going to edit that off screen. So 1 second here. Actually, cat config. There we go. So what you do here, is, let me open up another tool. 1 second. I'm going to have all this open in a second here for you guys. Oh, I have all my finances. Some good thing I don't got the video on for that. Anyways. All right. In my SSH config is this. This is the host name that I was using. I may have to change it, but let's see what IP address it got. 142, perfect. It has the same IP address. So this is this Debian box, and then you edit your SSH host config. So this is the config file, and I named the host Ghost. So it's Ghost Host, and I don't know how much bigger I can make that. So let me do it this way. Advanced. Is there? Oh, there it is. I was like, there's a plus button somewhere in here. So now we can go SSH ghost. And it logs in. So what this does is, because I renamed it with the my SSH host config, now I can SSH in as ghost. Now, there's a few other things you can play with it, but I didn't realize, and this is just my own ignorance, that you could do this particular thing, where you could go in and switch it so you can SSH using emojis. So that's just kind of novel. So yeah, emoji names in there. So any luck with Shinobi? No, I'm not. No interest in Shinobi. So yeah, both backup solutions. Do you have any experience with Docker? Nope. I run our forms in Docker, but I don't know how it works. I know enough to make it work, but I'm not a Docker expert. It's not something I admin. Been watching your videos on Ubiquiti. Gave me the confidence to set up a full Ubiquiti network. Awesome. What do I think of Untangled? I have a video on it. Untangled's great. Untangle has a different use case. People go, I run all my firewall to do this filtering and all these integrations. I just push people on Untangle because it's built-in integrations for that. It does have license fees attached to it, so it's something that it's one of those one-offs. We push people to it when they have these very specific things they want done, and I'm like, this is the way to do it. Untangle's got all this built in for you. Therefore, go for it. Use it. It's already integrated. pfSense does not have certain levels of integration as automated. It's more work to get there, and especially they don't have the filtering where you install a certificate and have your router doing man in the middle, et cetera, et cetera. So. I just don't have a use case for Docker. I know I'm familiar with Docker. Like, I know what it is. I am familiar with containerization. I just don't use it. What am I going to do with it? Play with it? I have enough hobbies right now. So I run most of our clients. A lot of my days, lots of just administering and designing network or storage systems for clients. So it's not like, hold on, let me build you this Docker so you can run your Windows server in it. And someone will point out, yeah, it does work Windows now. You got to remember, like even the P2V video I did, that's a real video of us talking about what we did, where we actually took and went to a client and got rid of their physical servers, put XCP-ng, stacked all their stuff in there. They have 0 Linux servers. Everything that went into that box is all Windows and Windows license server stuff. So what would I do? How would Docker have helped? I'm not picking on you. I'm just saying I know what Docker is, and a lot of people ask me on it, and the reason why is they want me to do videos on it. But if I don't use it every day, I'm not that good at it. I've tried to find some people who are good explainers. I have Phil, who's done a good couple Ansible videos, but his time's very he doesn't have a lot of time. Now, if I get into some other Linux development projects that I start doing where I want to develop a bunch of stuff and run them in containers and or a system like that with Docker, cool, I'll do a video on it if I do it. But right now, nothing I do is related to that. The same thing like a couple of the other file systems. People are like, hey, what about a Gluster file system? I'm like, I don't use them. I'm sure it's a wonderful system, but I don't use it. So what would I do with it? I like separate VMs because security, and they're absolutely solid, complete machines separate from each other. So it's a very solid, secure setup. I can take the virtual machine, pass it off somewhere else and everything else. It's a really nice way to me to handle things. So yeah. When Craft Computing is in he's in CES right now. I know he's been posting about it. When he gets back, I'm going to see what his schedule's like. Me and him talked on Twitter, direct DMs, and we're probably just going to do like a live stream. We kind of talk through some stuff, and we'll both have our setups so we can walk through things. By the way, the setup that he did or the setup that I'm going to demo are not ones I would use in production. They're just fun demos to play with stuff. I don't like virtualizing FreeNAS. I know it works, and someone says, but it works fine. There's some limitations that you may run into, and it's not an ideal production environment. This is more like a commercial production environment, but I think it's an excellent way to learn without having more than one piece of hardware. So I do have a use case for it, but it's more about learning, less about what I use in production. Production-wise, separate, solid. FreeNAS has raw access to all the servers. You get the most speed, direct hardware support, no issues. That's a solid way to run it. Once you separate runtime data and Docker, the power of continue. Yeah, I'm familiar with how cool it is, but yeah. Ever used device certificate based on Wi-Fi security? A little bit. I've done a couple jobs like that, not a lot. I want to do at some point a video on there. There's all kinds of little quirks and stuff that's setting that up, like when you have to set up a radius server and everything else. And I've just been busy. Doing those long, in-depth videos is time-consuming. When you guys even see a video that's an hour long of me showing some setup, there was probably numerous hours of prep time, numerous hours of editing, because I have to edit out all the steps or any pauses I had in a video, and I try to be as absolutely accurate as possible. So that takes sometimes 8 or 9 hours of production. So I like the long videos, but those ones when there's a lot of servers to stand up like that, they take me a lot more time, so they're less frequently done. I have to have like a solid, uninterrupted amount of time to work on it. You got to remember, this is still my part-time thing I do. I've never used Navico. Do I use Ansible? Not much. Very little Ansible. I have it. I've used it when I've got to orchestrate things. I've used it more for my demo videos when I want to create load on something by spinning up a bunch of Linux VMs and then using Ansible to execute all the same commands on them at the same time. But I don't use it in production. My friend Phil, he does it very well. He does use it day in, day out. He's using a lot of the different orchestration tools to build enterprise level. He works at the enterprise level with Linux. Therefore, he's doing that type of work all the time. I've never tried to calculate the video ratio because it's too hard. A long video takes a long time, like an in-depth video I do on step-by-step pfSense, but some of them are really fast. The one I did today on XCPNG, it is only 30 seconds longer unedited. There's 30 seconds I took out of that video. That's it. So it kind of depends on the video. When I'm just talking through a subject, because I know these subjects very well, I can talk through a subject uninterrupted. When I have to start standing up all the servers, that gets really tricky. But a lot of it, like the video on me talking about the P2V, I stood up the server anyways because it was for a client. Sometimes I'm doing stuff based on a client work. You guys, if you follow me on Twitter, you've seen the time lapse of the whole studio being covered in Wi-Fi. That's a lot of hours it took to program 82 Wi-Fis, set them up, upgrade the firmware, put a label on them, do everything else. And it looks fun for a video, but the reality is we did it for a client. It's for a project we installed. So when I video things that are for a client, I'm doing it anyways. So it's hard. It's not an easy calculation, so to speak, of how much time do I spend doing it. Virtualizing pfSense, I don't usually do it. I have a lot of videos on virtualization. Someone says, well, I do a virtualization video. I have a bunch of videos on it. Virtualizing pfSense, not my preference. I prefer to run those on hardware. There's some exceptions. I've seen where we've done super high-end clients and they have it virtualized for failover reasons because they don't want to have, so not HA, so there's two different types of failover we're talking about. There's HA failover where you have redundant pfSense boxes. That's one option, but that comes at the cost of having multiple public IPs. Then you have the option of setting up a HA where you have multiple servers. So if a server fails and it's virtualized, let's say, XCPNG, and it starts up the next server if it fails. That's another way to do it that doesn't require multiple IPs because it's not HA inside of pfSense, it's HA in the hypervisor to provide redundancy. There's some of those use cases like that, but I mean, you can. My thing is, it's the firewall is relative to when we build an environment for a client, the firewall cost. Like, here's your $8,000 server, and maybe you spent $1,000 on a firewall. why not just give them hardware? That way, if we ever have to reboot the virtualization stack for any reason, people still have internet. People don't lose their phones. So if we're ever working on a virtualization server, it's never a problem with the firewall. We always have internet. Matter of fact, for us, if we're remoting in through a VPN to get to their stuff to work on remotely, if we have to restart the virtualization server, we can't watch it restart because we're locked out of it while we're waiting for the firewall to boot back up. So those are the challenges we like to avoid by having a hardware firewall. Not everything we have has a firewall or has a UPS on it. Nope, I don't use Chocolatey. I think Chocolatey, I've looked at it. It looks kind of cool. Most of the time, each client has their own loadout for what they have. Chocolatey looks kind of neat, but I don't know if I know the guys at Level 1 have some videos on it, and it looks pretty cool. But it hasn't been something I've really dug into. I think we're running to the end of the show there. It is 7:30, and I do have somewhere to be this evening. Well, I'm just going to be home on the couch, so I don't really have like a place to be, but I am running. I've been here since 7 a.m., so we're 12 and a half hours into my day. As I get here at 7, I said before, and I don't know how interesting it is, the day in the life of Tom, waking up at 5 in the morning, getting the kids up, taking them to school, dropping the kids off, getting here to work at 7, doing all the random things that I do all day, and then going home. So I don't know. So, yeah. If you want to virtualize at home, it's a great learning experience. Like, that could be fun, but for our clients, like I said, yeah. It's one of those things. There's things I do sometimes for testing, and we do have a virtualized pfSense for testing, but not, the rest of it is lab stuff. Once it goes into production, we do, it's hard to separate it. Sometimes people think I'm virtualized FreeNAS. That would be a cool idea. I want to do this for this client. No, you don't. You want to keep each one of the things separate. The hot sauce videos, I just don't know what to say. We did some of the hot sauce videos, and I'm always not sure what to say. I'm not good at it, so I have a harder time figuring out. We talked about doing them a couple times, and I kind of said, I always feel awkward. Like, what do I say now? So it's hot. Hey, it's nice to have a physical box to punch and to look for blinky lights on, because when you have to call someone, are the blinky lights blinking? If it's virtual, that becomes a little bit more challenging for them to help troubleshoot over the phone. That is for sure. I don't know much about the AirCube. I know I did a review of it. I don't have any in use anymore. So, anyways, thank you for all the folks that have joined. It looks like we're down to about 300. Smash that like button. Thank you again for all the people that threw money at me that helped keep me motivated for sure. And it helps buy all these little things I get, all these little adapters and stuff like that. You guys seen the adapter? This is a large A45 adapter. Man, this thing, wow, is that hot? This thing needs a more heatsink. This is a large A45 adapter. This is $40 for this thing, man. I care about you guys enough because this is not a production thing. This is all just stuff hanging out in my lab here. This is all to do the video, and of course to tie it together with this to do another video to share with all of you this whole TrueNAS system that we're going to be evaluating here. So, awesome. So thank you for everyone. Like I said, Usina, oh yeah, there's other companies that are really proud. Buy these, I'm going to talk about that too. Buy these ones from the 10G Tech company. They're great. They're solid. We use a lot of them. They have not failed us, and they're very reasonable price. Because the other ones, this is the cheaper ones that aren't 10 gig, but like the 1 gig ones and even the 10 gig ones are pretty cheap from 10G Tech. Even the cables, these cables are from 10G Tech too. And I'll cover all that in that video. As always, head over to my forums. I like when people participate in there. The best place to suggest video ideas and have discussion is in there too. People who email me video ideas, I don't ever reply to. Sorry. I have a forum for that. And I also forget about you if you just send me emails. I don't know what to do with that piece of information. If it's in a forum, I actually go through sometimes the idea lists in the forum. That's just why I put a place. It's also kind of like a, hey, cool, this is what people are talking about. It inspires me. And even if you didn't post in the why you should do a video about it forum, sometimes the questions people ask in there, I may make a video as a reply because I know people are either misunderstanding or need a better, more in-depth understanding of a particular topic. So that's why the forums have been insightful for both me and maybe some of the audience as well. So, all right, and thank you. I'm going to press end stream. Like and subscribe. Smash